and welcome to another edition of Illuminate Online. My name is Mike and it's great to have you join us. We've got lots in store for you today as usual. We've got a game for you to play, we've got a craft for you to make, we've got some funny videos, and we're going to look at the next part of the story of Joseph from Genesis 42. And let's start there, shall we? So far we've seen that Egypt is in a famine and God is providing food for them to eat during the famine, and he's using Joseph to oversee all the food management. Joseph's basically the Prime Minister, and today we're going to find out what happened next. We go miles away from Egypt, back to where Joseph used to live, back where he was from, back to his family, and there we find Joseph's father Jacob, and we also find his brothers. Do you remember Joseph's brothers? These were the same brothers who had thrown Joseph into the pit, leaving him for dead, and they did it because they were jealous of him. And Joseph's family back home, they've also been hit by the famine. They're pretty hungry, they're running out of food. And so the dad says to the brothers, this famine has hit us hard. So you need to go to Egypt because they've got enough food. And you need to see if you can buy some food from there. And so the brothers, along with lots of other people, they travel to Egypt looking for food. Now since then, Joseph's dad has had another brother called Benjamin. And he keeps Benjamin at home because he's worried that he would lose Benjamin the way he'd lost Joseph many years before. Joseph's dad doesn't realise that Joseph is still alive. He thinks he's dead, and he's worried that the same might happen to Benjamin too. Now, as we look at Joseph's family, we can see there's an awful lot of hurt there. Joseph was hurt by the brothers' wrongdoing in a massive way, wasn't he? He ended up as a slave, unfairly, and then in prison, unfairly. And he was there for more than 10 years because of his brother's jealousy and what that brought them to do. But it's not just Joseph that was hurt. Joseph's dad, Jacob, he's also terribly hurt. He lost a son. He thinks Joseph is dead, and that's an awful thing to have to go through. And 10 years later, he's still terrified. He's still living in fear that if he lets Benjamin out of his sight, the same might happen to him. And Benjamin too, I guess, is affected. His dad is overprotective of him because some older brother that he'd never met had supposedly died before he was born. And now he's not allowed out of his dad's sight in case he dies too. And bizarrely, I think the actions of Joseph's brothers even ended up hurting themselves. It's weird, isn't it? Because they wanted to get rid of Joseph. They didn't want him there. They thought it would be a good idea to get rid of their dad's favourite, because they were jealous of him and maybe they wanted some of that attention. And I kind of get where they're coming from. Sometimes when people annoy me, deep down I have a moment where I think, wouldn't it be good if they just happened to go to Egypt? And although I've never thrown anyone in a pit or sold them into slavery in Egypt, if someone annoyed me and then happened to be on a plane to Egypt, well, I'm not going to complain. After all, isn't that me getting exactly what I wanted in the first place?
Kevin, you're such a problem around here.
Kevin, you always cause trouble.
Yeah, look what you did, you little squirt.
Kevin, you're what the French called le stupide little boy.
Kevin, your hair looks like a bush.
By the way, you're sharing a bed with little Mike tonight, and you know what happens when little Mike drinks just a little bit too much Coke.
Hey Kevin, looks like I got the last piece of plain cheese toilet paper.
Say goodnight, Kevin.
Kevin, get upstairs now!
I wish my family would all just disappear to Egypt. Where is everybody? Mom? Dad? Lord? Batman? I made my family disappear. I made my family disappear. Oh, Dad, I'm watching movies that I'm not allowed to watch. Hope I don't get in trouble. Oh, Mum, I made a sledge from a pillow and I'm going to go down the stairs. Hope I don't get in trouble. But I think the brothers aren't actually that happy that Joseph is gone. They might have been at first, a decade ago, when they first got rid of him. They probably thought, this is great, we don't have to deal with that annoying younger brother anymore. But I don't think they're that happy about it now. See what you think as we go through the story and as we read from the Bible. I actually think that the wrongdoing the brothers did so many years before has sent hurt rippling in all kinds of directions, so that everybody ended up hurt. Their little brother Joseph, their even littler brother Benjamin, their father Jacob, and in the end even themselves. And you know, I think I know exactly what they're going through. It's obvious that when someone does something mean to me that I would end up hurt, we know that. But I also know that when I do something wrong to someone else, that can hurt me too. It can make me feel guilty, or it can make me feel ashamed, and it can ruin my friendships and my relationships. And it can also come back to bite me later on. When we sin, when we do something wrong, we hurt people around us, but we also end up hurting ourselves. So the brothers are on their way to Egypt. While they're making their way there, we are going to pause here and I'm going to teach you a game that you can play from home. I've got a game for you to play at home. This game is called Colour Hunt, and you can play it by yourself, or you can play it with your brothers and sisters as a team, or you could play it with your brothers and sisters competitively so that you're racing against each other to beat the game. And what I've got here is 4 different coloured pieces of card. I've got black, red, yellow and green, but you can find different colours of any kinds. And the aim of the game is this: if you're working by yourself or as a team, you can get one of your grown-ups to time you. If you're playing against each other, then you just have to be the fastest. And the game is you need to go and find 5 different objects that match each of those colours. So for me, I needed to find 5 black objects, 5 red objects, 5 green objects and 5 yellow objects from around my house. Be careful not to get anything that you know is valuable or breakable or that your parents find precious, because we shouldn't really play games with those. And then once you've found the objects, put them on those bits of card and let me know how quickly you managed to do it. I managed to collect all of mine in 5 minutes and 48 seconds, and I bet you can't beat my time. And all you have to do now is put everything back where you found it. And maybe you could time yourself to see how long it takes you to do that too. And that's the end of the game. So the brothers go and see if they can buy some food from Egypt, and guess who's in charge of all the food in Egypt during the famine? Well, if it isn't their younger brother Joseph. The very Joseph that they sold into slavery. Plot twist. But they don't recognise Joseph. They don't realise it's him. I imagine he looked a lot different. He was about 13 years older than he had been. And he was stood before them in the finest Egyptian fashion, instead of grumbling around underneath them in the dirt, in the pit, like the last time they'd seen him. And they never expected Joseph to be the prime minister of a powerful place like Egypt. They probably assumed that he died long ago. And so they bow before this important looking Egyptian chap, not clicking that it's Joseph, their younger brother. And isn't that funny? Years and years after Joseph had a dream that his brothers would bow before him, and here we are. Joseph's brothers are bowing before him. Well, they don't recognise Joseph, but he recognises them straight away. And it's no surprise, after all the hurt that they had caused, that the atmosphere between Joseph and the brothers is a little frosty. And Joseph calls them spies. He interrogates them about their father back home and about their younger brother Benjamin back home. And in the end he says, you need to go and bring Benjamin here to me, and to make sure you do, I'm going to keep one of you, I'm going to keep Simeon in prison here in Egypt. And as they go back to their home, the brothers start to discuss why these things are happening to them. See what they think. They said to one another, surely we are being punished because of our brother. We saw how distressed he was when he pleaded with us for his life, but we would not listen. That's why this distress has come on us. Reuben replied, didn't I tell you not to sin against the boy? But you wouldn't listen. Now we must give an accounting for his blood. They did not realise that Joseph could understand them, since he was using an interpreter. He turned away from them and began to weep, but then came back and spoke to them again. He had Simeon taken from them and bound before their eyes. Joseph gave orders to fill their bags with grain, to put each man's silver back in his sack, and to give them provisions for their journey. After this was done for them, they loaded their grain on their donkeys and left. I said before that the brothers were also hurt by their own actions in what they had done to Joseph. And they know that they'd done something wrong by not listening to Joseph when he pleaded for his life and leaving him in the pit and selling him as a slave. And they think that it's finally come back to bite them, and they're now facing their just deserts. Reuben even says, we must give an accounting for Joseph's blood, as if this was their judgment day and they have to pay for what they did to Joseph. And what's really interesting is the brothers seem to understand their Bibles pretty well. They know that their wrongdoing rippled outwards and affected Joseph and others. They also know that their wrongdoing rippled inwards and made them feel guilty and ashamed and hurt themselves. But they also seem to think that their wrongdoing rippled upwards. They say we are being punished. But by who? Nobody except them and Joseph knew what they had done. And as far as they were concerned, Joseph was long dead. So who else do they think had seen what they'd done and was now punishing them? Well, Joseph had snuck some silver into their bags, and when they find the silver in the bags, they panic. They realise it's going to look really bad if they have both the food that they paid for and the money they should have paid for it with. It's going to look like they stole the food, and they think, we're going to get in trouble for this. So they panic, and then we see who they think is punishing them. At the place where they stopped for the night, one of them opened his sack to get feed for his donkey, and he saw his silver in the mouth of his sack. My silver has been returned, he said to his brothers. Here it is in my sack. Their hearts sank, and they turned to each other, trembling, and said, what is this that God has done to us? Our wrongdoing ripples outwards, and it hurts other people around us. Our wrongdoing also ripples inwards and hurts ourselves and makes us feel guilty and ashamed. But critically, our wrongdoing ripples upwards and affects God. And they are right to talk about giving an accounting for Joseph's blood. It is right that wrongdoing, however serious, is met with judgment. And our wrongdoing, which ripples upwards and is seen by God, will one day be met in judgment by God. We're going to pause there. That's something to think about. While we're thinking about that, I've got a craft for us to do that we can do from home. But we'll be back after the craft to think a little bit more about what we've read. Hello! Today we're going to be making some fish, some floppy fish. Because fish flop when they swim, they go floppy, floppy, floppy. And we're going to make some fish that flop. And in order to make this craft, you are going to need some glue. If you haven't got glue, you could use sellotape, but Pritt stick is fine. You are going to need some scissors, and you're going to need a pen to draw the eyes. You could use googly eyes. You could also use different colour pens or anything really to decorate the fish before you start if you would like to. And you're also going to need 2 different coloured pieces of card or paper. Paper I think does work a bit better for this. But I haven't got any coloured paper, so I'm doing mine with card, and it does work fine as well. So we're going to start with taking one piece of coloured card and the other one we're going to set aside for later on. And with this piece of card you are going to fold diagonally so that you make a square until this corner reaches this edge, and you should get a nice straight edge there. So you should have like that, folds across like that, so you get like a nice straight edge on that side and everything's flush. And then you're going to cut across there where that line is. So that can go to one side, and you're left with a big square like this. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to unfold it, so you've got your square. You're going to turn it so that your fold line is going straight up away from you rather than at an angle like that. And then you're going to use these corners and you're going to fold these corners into the middle to make the shape of a kite. All of this edge here is going to then sit flush with that line there. So you should have a thing that looks like a kite. What you're then going to do is you're going to unfold it again. You're going to fold with the original fold so that it's back in half like a big triangle. And you're then going to cut from here. You've got your, here, let me draw on mine. Here you've got the fold lines you've just made by turning it into a kite that you can see there. And what you're going to do is from this fold here in the middle, you're going to cut all the way up to that line, but no further than that line, and you're going to cut lots of lines. And you probably want to start about nearly halfway along. You don't want to do it the whole way along, you probably want to start about there. So you should have, now when you unfold it, a weird like, I don't know how to describe that, lots of weird little lines in there. So here's your fish. You're going to get some glue, and you're going to want to smother all of this bit with glue. Once you're there, you're going to take this bit that you've just glued and you're going to fold it in there, and you're going to fold this one up and press it down like that. So now you've got your floppy movement in ready for the fish, and this is going to be its tail, this is going to be its head, and this is going to be its mouth. So the next thing we need to do is we need to give him a bottom jaw. To do that, you're going to take the rectangle that you cut off, that's the same colour, and you're just going to cut a triangle from the bottom, kind of like that. Left with a triangle. Now, if I hadn't cut this out of red, I could use a smaller piece of red card to make a tongue. If you have made yours in red, you could use pink paper maybe to... Oh, I've got some pink paper. Remember this guy? Don't pay attention to anything I'm doing right now. Voila, some pink paper! Stick some glue on your pink paper. Stick that on to your... So you've got that, so you've got a little tongue as well. And then you're just gonna, on the edge, so I've left a gap across there. On the edge where I haven't left a gap, on the other side, I'm just gonna put some glue across there. And once you've got your strip of glue on the back, you're gonna put the triangle in the mouth like this, and you're gonna wanna push it down as best as you can, and then he's got a bottom jaw as well. I'm gonna give him some little eyes, and put other scales and things like that. And now we are gonna do the fins, and that's what your other bit of paper is for. And then cut out a flipper shape, and then you'll have two identical flippers. You can cut along the fold that you've made there, your two flippers. You can look up online different types of fish. You'll see that there's all kinds of wonderful and wacky types of fish on there with different flippers and fins and tails and all kinds of different decorations. So you can get really creative with what you do with yours. Now I've just taken a little bit of glue along the edge there, and I'm going to use that and I'm just going to stick it to the bottom there. But now he's got some flippers, as you can see. Then you're going to want to take your yellow card again and cut out another bit. And you're going to want to make a tail. I want my tail to be symmetrical, but it doesn't have to be. I'm going to go for like a bit of a moustache shape. And this one, you're just going to glue down the middle where you've made the fold, and you're then going to pick up your fish by its tail end and hold it down like that. And that's it. There's your fish craft, and he can move and swim, which is really nice. And you could add all kinds of things to this. You could add like sequins or glitter to make him look like he's sparkly, because fish are sparkly with their scales. You could add fins, you could add teeth, you could add all kinds of things. You could try and make lobsters, dolphins, whales, killer whales. That would be a fun one. I made my favourite animal, which is a shark. And I gave him some teeth, and I gave him a fin on his back, which you can see. Over to you. See how you guys do. See what kind of things you can make. And as I said, get really creative and let us see what you made. I'd love to see all the different kinds of fish that you guys come up with. Thanks! Last week we were making baskets filled with bread and fish, like the feeding of the 5,000 from elsewhere in the Bible. And Imi made a box instead of a basket, and it's very cleverly made. And a very colourful box too. And inside the box you can see there's all the bread, and there's also some happy looking fishes as well. Although they are about to be eaten, so I'm not sure quite why they're that happy. But well done to Imi, and thank you for sharing it with us. If you've made a craft at home, you can send it to me, and I would love to put it in one of our future videos. But for now, let's go back to Joseph and his brothers. So, Joseph's brothers are guilt-stricken. They realise they've done wrong against their family and against themselves, and also against God. And the same is true for us, because all of us sometimes are wrongdoers. And the brothers head back to their dad, leaving Simeon with Joseph. That's why we're going to pause the story for this week, and we'll see what happens next in next week's video. But before we finish, I want us to pause and think about what Joseph has done. Because Joseph acts weirdly, doesn't he? Remember, Joseph had once told his brothers about a dream where they had bowed to him. And they didn't want to believe it, so they threw him in a hole and then sold him as a slave. But now, here they are, bowing before him just like he had dreamt. Now, if that was me, there would be something that I'd want to shout at the top of my lungs.
Hello?
Hello, Michael.
Laura? What do you want?
I'm sad.
What do you mean you're sad? Why are you sad? Wait a minute, you didn't go in the dog's crate, did you?
No?
Laura, I told you, if you went in the dog's crate, you would get stuck.
I didn't believe you.
You didn't believe me? You are in the dog's crate, aren't you?
Yeah.
Actually, I might even have been tempted to do something more dramatic. These are the guys who threw me in a hole and then sold me as a slave. I might be tempted to make them pay for it, right? I did 13 years in prison. Now maybe it's their turn, right? That would be fair. Or maybe I'd want to go even stronger, because after all, they'd started it. Maybe they should go to prison for longer. Or maybe I should have them executed. I mean, the only reason they didn't kill Joseph was because they thought they could get more money if they sold him. But Joseph doesn't do any of that. He doesn't punish them. Actually, Joseph shows them grace. He acts gracefully. They deserve a punishment, but he doesn't give it to them. Instead, Joseph has a plan to forgive his brothers. He's going to turn his brothers, who had become his enemies, back into his brothers again. And the brothers even say that Joseph has given them a chance, an opportunity to be honest men. Then the man who is Lord over the land, they're talking about Joseph, said to us, "This is how I will know whether you are honest men. Leave one of your brothers here with me, and take food for your starving households and go." Now Joseph knows that deep down his brothers are not honest men, but he shows them grace. And he gives them a chance and an opportunity to change and to be honest men. And we'll see next time that Joseph is aching for them to change. So instead of being enemies, they can be a family again. And you know, when our wrongdoing ripples up to God, and because of it we deserve punishment, God doesn't just straight away go, "Aha! I've caught you." He doesn't lightning bolt us as soon as we do something wrong, like an angry Zeus. It wouldn't be unfair if he did, but he doesn't. That just isn't what God is like. God isn't like a hungry tiger crouching and waiting for his prey to make one wrong move so he can pounce on them. Instead, God shows us grace. In his grace, he doesn't punish us where we deserve it, but he gives us a chance and an opportunity to change. He's waiting for us to turn back to him so that he can pour forgiveness on us and make us honest, so that instead of being enemies with God, we can be a family again. That's what God is like. He's more like a loving dad whose child has run away from him, and he's waiting for us to come back home so he can welcome us back into the family with a hug. Why don't we pray? I'm going to say the kind of prayer that I usually say when I know that I've done something wrong. And if you want to join me, you can. You can say Amen at the end, which means I agree. Or you can try and say a similar prayer in your own words afterwards. That's entirely up to you. Let me pray. 1, 2, 3. Dear God, you more than anyone know that I am not an honest person. You more than anyone sees the wrongdoing that takes place in my mind and in my heart, that turns into thoughts and feelings and speech and action. And you more than anyone can see the ripple effect and how my wrongdoing hurts people around me and is hurting myself and is hurting you. And yet, even though you know that deep down I am not honest or good, even though you know that I am a wrongdoer, you do not jump on me with punishment and lightning bolts. And instead you show me grace, even though I don't deserve it. Thank you, Lord, that you give me a chance to change. Thank you that you sent Jesus so I can come back to you. And thank you that you want to make me an honest person. I pray that you will help me to let your Spirit into my heart so that you can work those changes in my life. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. 4. Now we can't just shrug our wrongdoing away. Wrongdoing is serious. And Joseph can't just forget what the brothers did to him, although he devises a plan to give them a chance to change. But they're not quite a happy, hugging family just yet. And God gives us a chance to change too. But it's a very costly change. That's what Jesus' death was. It's a chance for us to change. It's God gracefully not giving us the punishment we deserve and giving it to Jesus instead, so that we have the chance to change, to turn away from our wrongdoing and to come back to God. Now we're going to see how that chance to change plays out next week. First for Joseph's brothers and then for us. But that is everything for this week. So come back next time, we'll have more games, we'll have another craft, we'll have plenty more clips of me acting like a bonker. And we'll also see Joseph's interesting plan to turn his enemies back into his family. Until then, if you haven't seen them already, do have a look at our Cooking with Mike videos. I think you'll really like them. And we've also got our Sunday morning services, which is something that maybe you or your parents might like to join us for. But otherwise, I'll see you here next week at Illuminate Online. Bye! Little Mike. Oh, hey, Kevin. You're in my bed. Yeah, did Mum not say we're sharing tonight? But you're drinking Coca-Cola before bedtime. Well, yes, I suppose I am.